Hi everyone, so today I am here to talk about this foundation, the MAC Pro Longwear Nourishing Waterproof Foundation. I don't know anything about whether or not it's waterproof. It also has a claim that it lasts 36 hours. I can't say anything to that because those the 36-hour claim is completely bonkers. So, before I get into anything about the formula and how it wears and all that, let's take a look at the swatches. I have some things from MAC, some things that are good shade matches for me that I like, and something that I thought would be a similar shade. I did not choose wisely as far as clothing goes today. Oh my gosh, trying to get my sleeve rolled up without cutting off circulation. A challenge. This is the MAC concealer, the Studio Fix concealer in NC10. And this is the MAC Pro Longwear Nourishing Waterproof in NW13. So this might be a tiny bit, like half a shade darker, but obviously very different undertones, being this is an NW and this is an NC. This is Studio Fix in NW10. So this is NW13, NW10, but in the Studio Fix line. So that line, for whatever reason, is a good bit darker than this one, and this is NC10, which is definitely wearable for me, but even though it didn't darken too much in this swatch, when it's on my face, it darkens a lot throughout the day, so it ends up being pretty dark. Now this is the Lancome Teint Idole Ultra in 095W, which I enjoy a lot. And I feel like, weirdly, this one does not get darker on my face the way this one does. So it does get darker as it dries initially, but then it stays that tone. This is the Clinique Beyond Perfecting in CN 0.5 shell. This is a little bit better of a shade match for me generally. And something that I thought would be kind of similar to the NW13, and I think they are, it might be a little bit darker as it dries, is the Lancome. And this is the Lancome Teint Idole Ultra. This is the old formula, so I can't say for certain that it is this exact shade anymore. And this was in at the time, the lightest shade, 90.
It's so cool.
Okay, so I'm sure I have other things, but this older Lancome Teint Idole Ultra in 90 Ivory is, I think, a pretty similar color. I don't find that, as far as the swatches go, this did dry darker than the other shade. When it was more wet, it was a closer match. So it might be that it just does not oxidize much. I do feel like it stays pretty pale looking on my face. It doesn't look peachy by the end of the day. The issue I had with, which I think I talked about in the swatches, is that the MAC Studio Fix line, NC10, is pretty good when you first put it on for me, but then throughout the day it gets so much darker, and it gets to the point where it's like it's noticeably, even though I'm only wearing like light to medium coverage, it is noticeably darker than it was at the beginning of the day. So I'm glad that they have a foundation that is paler, but then the shade number on this is crazy that it is so much lighter than NC10, and this is NW13. I have some frustration when it comes to MAC and pale shades because they just don't have any pale shades. Now, I am not totally current on what MAC has done with their foundation in the past year, but as far as I know, at brief glance, I did not see any major changes to the foundation lines as far as the pale end goes. I did make a video when Studio Fix added NC5 to their line, but NC5 is actually more golden than NC10, so it ended up being darker than NC10. That blew my mind. It was like, you're gonna add a lower number to your line, finally, woo, pale people are rejoicing everywhere. And then it turns out to be darker. I was very, very frustrated when that came out. And I really thought I was losing it because it was like, surely this cannot be darker. Yes, in fact it was. And so I hope that at some point they do it. So I have so many foundations now that are pale enough for me too pale for me. You know, every other brand, it feels like, is like kind of slowly getting on the train of we need to have shades that are very pale, we need to go dark, we need to go deep, we need to have a varied line. And MAC's kind of thing with the Studio Fix line is that we have a shade for everybody, but they don't on the pale end. And it's like, what? You know, if that's going to be your shtick, come on. Come on. So that's always been pretty frustrating when it comes to MAC. This color for me, I think is fine. I think it warms up a tiny bit after it has dried, so it doesn't look at that kind of milky pink look that it first appears when I first put it on, because you can see in the demo, it's just like, ooh, that looks kind of like a white glaze over your redness, and it's just like pink. But I feel like it looks fine throughout the day, and it doesn't retain that kind of milky pinkness. And it, you know, the undertone obviously is not the best fit for me. For me, I am more of this like kind of cool yellow, and so this more peachy tone is fine, but it's not ideal. You know, I much prefer to have things that have more of a yellow undertone. It matches to my neck a little bit better, and also it covers the redness a little bit better instead of making the redness look pink. So I really enjoy how this wears. I wore it yesterday and it was so perfect even after like 10, 11 hours. Like, I gotta make a video on this because this is just so nice. I didn't think I had talked about it on my channel yet. I tried to look. I was not very successful. So we'll see, I guess, if I've actually talked about it on my channel before. I don't think so. In the past, when my skincare was different, my skin was different, etc., etc., I did not find it wore very well, but whatever current skin situation I'm in just seems to be more amenable to foundation wearing decently. So I don't know. I can't apply my personal experience to anybody else just because my skin is just like in flux all the time. It feels like what works for a certain period of time just doesn't like a year later. So right now, in this current state, it wore very nicely yesterday. I don't use primer. The two powders that I have the best luck with are the NARS Light Reflecting Setting Powder Pressed, which is what I used today. Yesterday, I used the Laura Mercier Loose Setting Powder. Those are the two that, if I'm going to get really good, nice, no creasing, no patchiness, no separating, not looking super dry, not looking crazy oily, those are the two things that are going to do the best for me. I am combination skin. I have kind of a moderately oily T-zone. Sometimes it's a little bit less oil, sometimes it's a little bit more, but I do have fairly dry cheeks, and I have some seborrheic dermatitis in various spots, which at the moment is doing pretty good. It's not flaking or peeling recently, so I feel like my skincare seems to be keeping it moderately happy at the moment. So oftentimes my skin is easier, it tolerates foundation a little bit better on the more oily areas, and it's the dry areas that I really struggle with to get things to look nice and not look super dry throughout the day, and not catch on flakes and whatnot. I've not had any issues like that with this foundation where it like grabbed onto a dry patch. It just seems to apply nicely. I really have had zero luck applying things with brushes for foundation, except for some very like particular outliers. So if I want something to look nice, I press it in with my fingers or I use a sponge, and this one just applies beautifully and quickly with a sponge. So I do like that a lot. The squeeze tube packaging is pretty nice just because you can get out how much you want pretty easily versus a pump where you're trying to fiddle with how much of a pump you're doing and maybe 1 1/4 pumps, whatever. So I do like that kind of squeezy tube packaging, even if it's a little, you can't get a precise amount every time unless you can squeeze the exact amount out right every time. Maybe you can, maybe have like precision squeezing. But anyway, I'm really glad that MAC has this shade because it's pale, but you know, I never would have picked it up until I had seen that video of somebody else saying it was really pale. I never would have tried it because why would I think that NW13 is going to be lighter than NC10, which is too dark? And this formula doesn't oxidize the way like Studio Fix does, so it ends up being like fairly significantly lighter. So frustrating. Anyway, so yeah, let me know if you've tried it. Let me know if you know anything. Do you know anything? I don't know anything. I feel like I don't know anything. I'm pretty much out of the loop on a lot of things. I will have the probably a comment or description on how it wore today. I am wearing a different SPF, different powder than I did yesterday. Yesterday it wore beautifully. I will include the information of the SPF and the setting powder that I used yesterday for reference. And yeah, I'll keep you guys updated. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you soon.
And I have 5 or 4 saltines before lunch because I'm getting pretty hungry.
How about 3 saltines?
Okay. I'll just enjoy some food.
Wouldn't we all?